Well, welcome everybody. Another week. It's after watching the film and coming off the weekend, obviously it was a good game for us. It was anytime you win, you got to enjoy them, and it was no different on Saturday. I thought the guys came out. It was good to see how they responded off coming off a tough week. Really, two totally different games, 2 weeks in a row where we got beat by 35 points, and then we were able to come out and win by 35 points. So I think it says a lot about the guys in the room and their commitment to each other, and figuring out a way to come and flip the script and play their best football game. So now the challenge is keeping it going, and I think that confidence-wise they see what type of team they can be, but we also know what type of league this is, and if you don't prepare and come to work and do the things necessary to win a football game and execute, the next team on your schedule will beat you, and this week's no different. So we're ready for a tough Indiana State team. Got a ton of respect for those guys, and they've had a few really tough games. Really could have a few wins, and played a lot of teams really close. Went to Liberty and had a pretty short field goal blocked at the end of the game to win on the road in front of 20,000 people. So this is a good football team that's looking for their first win, and it's homecoming, and we know that, and we're on the road, and so our focus won't be any different than it has been.
When you watched the film, did you feel like you were more physical than you had been in the previous weeks?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that we won the line of scrimmage, and we were physical on the edges. We were physical at the wide receiver position, and then when we were on, not only that, but just in special teams, we played physical, and we've got to continue to do that. We have some physical football players, and I think that the biggest thing is we were able to get our players the ball in space and able to play. And then I thought on defense, our defensive line set the tone, and we're physical, and we ran around, and it wasn't just one or two players. That stat sheet was filled with people playing hard and flying around and playing fast.
There's more than one way to skin a cat, I guess. People were worried that we wouldn't be able to run against them, but we just took a different tack in running to the edge instead of trying to go through the middle all the time.
Yeah, I think that we talk about that in here a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do things, and you've got to, use your weapons the way that you've got to do it. Even going back, I mean, their defensive line, 98, 99, those are really good defensive linemen. Maybe the best two that we've seen to this point, really. Just a really, really good football players. And so I think that we were able to do some things to kind of take them out of the game and not let them to be as big a factor as far as just, lining up and running at them. Probably wouldn't have been the smartest thing to do. So getting them running sideline to sideline was a key, and we were able to execute, and that's not the easiest thing to do either. You got to block on the perimeter, and they've got good athletes and good speed. So really you want to run the football any way that you can, whether that's outside or inside or however you got to do it. You've got to create some running opportunities for your guys.
What kind of situations do you like Daquan, and what situations do you prefer to use DJ Davis in that role?
And it's still the same thing. We've got to figure out ways. They're all a little bit different. They all have their strengths, and they have their weaknesses on what they do well and what they don't do well, and that's our job as coaches. Like, we're in there right now, just hey, that's everybody across the country, or should be as a coach on offense, is, hey, what's this guy do well, and let's put him in those situations. So, DJ is he's a guy that can play all over the field. I said that after the game. I mean, he catches the ball really well. He played receiver in high school, so he could line up and run routes. Maybe a little bit different than Daquan, but Daquan's good in the perimeter as well. He's strong. He catches the ball well. And then both of them can run between the tackles. You saw DJ on a 3rd and 3 pick up 4 yards and run it physically. We don't ask him to do that a ton, but people have to honor it because he can do it. And then, Cam runs a little bit different, a little more patient, and kind of finding the creases. And so it's our job. We've got to keep on finding. I think we've done a good job to this point, really adjusting off South Dakota State is, using our players and getting them to their strengths.
Ralph has made a lot of big plays in recent weeks. How much of that really helped out your offense in having just another weapon to throw to?
Yeah, it's huge. We feel like we've, all three of those guys that are really going for us at wide receiver. It's hard to key on one guy. They've all had 100-yard games. They have all had, multiple touchdowns. So, that's a credit to them and being unselfish and running hard routes even when the play they might not be the first option. You see them out there blocking for each other, blocking for DJ. So that's a good group. That's a good room, and they all have I just talked about the backs. They all do a little something different, but Ralph can run. He can take the top off the defense. He's got. When you see him, he's all legs. Sometimes he might not look like a burner, but he's covering a lot of ground. If you ask our DBs who's the toughest to cover when he gets going, it's probably Ralph. He can run and he does a good job, judging the ball, and he's made some big plays for us.
It feels like your team kind of has maybe one of the most set of weapons though in the conference, making it kind of difficult for other teams to set up on one key guy to defend on.
Yeah, and that's what you'd hope for, is to have balance and be able to have playmakers all over the field. If you just have one or two, then it's, especially in the middle of the season, teams have your film and they watch how you try to get it to them. A lot of times you can't do the same thing week after week. It sounds good, but they're going to have a plan to stop you, and you've got to, if you have more, answers out there on the field, then you can do different things to set things up. And but then again, a lot of times it comes down to those guys being good football players and winning their one-on-one matchup.
Eventually, will Amir Hogan's role be somewhat like DJ Davis's?
Yeah, and you saw him get a touch finally, get his first touch on Saturday, and he's a lot like DJ when we recruited him.
Be able to run from the running back spot.
Yeah, he did in high school, so maybe just another guy that's just a little bit different than DJ, a lot of similarities, but more of a wide receiver that kind of does that kind of stuff than DJ's more of a running back that can do, some receiver stuff. So Amari's an explosive kid. That's why he's not redshirting, and he'll just continue to get more touches. And yeah, it's all right. It happens. But yeah, he's a kid that we've got to continue to get the ball to. It's tough when you've got 5, 6, 7 guys at wide receiver, rotating them in, especially when those older guys have been there and done it and do a good job.
Pretty much satisfied that you took his red shirt.
Yeah, and especially as we get going in this thing, you never know who gets banged up. People got to be ready to go, and those skill play. He ran down on kickoff. I think he got 5 or 6 special teams reps, had a carry. As we get going in this thing, he's gonna be a valuable piece.
When your quarterback plays like he did, you and your coaches kind of look like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's credit to him. He had a good week of practice. Really, I say that sounds boring, but that's where it starts as a quarterback. And we challenged him to be critical of himself and practice. That's what the best ones do. It means something to you on Thursday. I want to know what my passing percentage is on Thursday. We charted every throw and balls not hitting the ground, and then that translates to Saturday. Completions. Whenever that's something I learned a lot from my short time in Green Bay is, you're never going to get in trouble for a completion. I don't care if it goes for a -2 yards. The ball's getting caught by playmakers on the perimeter. We're getting the ball. Just keep the ball in play, and then hopefully, which we know we do, we've got playmakers that are eventually going to make that guy miss, and it's going to be a 15-yard gain, or we take our shots in one-on-one, and 2 of them might be incompletions or good plays by the DBs, but we catch those 2 that Ralph had, and those are big plays for us. And Sam did a great job of giving our guys a shot at the go balls. Even the ones that were broken up, they're bang plays. They're not overthrown. We call those long foul balls. In baseball, you hit a big deep one and then it goes, foul right at the end. Well, that's a strike. Looks pretty for a little while and then it lands out of bounds. on a fade route. We want our guys a chance to touch it on every pass, and I think Sam really valued the football on Saturday and did a good job.
Defensively, you guys were pretty good on third down and 5 3-and-outs. How do you build on that as you move forward?
I think every week's a new challenge, new set of what the team's doing. Each team has their strengths, what they're going to do. Saw what you did last week, the different formations and how you're going to line up, and they're going to have a new way to try to attack us. So I think each week creates your own problems and our own strengths. I think we know what our strengths are on defense. We're athletic, and we got to run to the football, and those standards never change week to week. So I think building off of that still comes down to winning one-on-one matchups, getting off your block, tackling well. We tackled well on Saturday. Just the small fundamental detail things, and then locking into the game plan and understanding what they're trying to do on certain situations and what they're trying to take advantage of. And they, and Indiana State causes some problems. They like to shift in motion and play with few tight ends, different personnel groupings. So as a defensive back, safeties, our linebackers, they've got to get us lined up, shifts and trades, make sure we're in our right gaps and not let that confusion get us out of place, because that's what they're trying to do whenever teams do that. So we got to be sharp this week and lock into the game plan.
It's interesting to watch your special teams, and that I started to realize that you try to get the best guy in there, no matter, like Ralph Leonard was on the outside on the kickoff team. Is he a real good tackler? Is that the reason you have him, wide receiver that you?
Yeah, well, I think that you just try to get, and you do that in recruiting. If you're a receiver, especially like this week when you go on the road, you can only dress 60 guys. So if you're one of the 7 receivers, you better be playing special teams, especially if you're number 5, 6, and 7. If you're not getting any reps at wide receiver, then you're just standing over there the entire game. You got to play. You got to be on kickoff return. You got to be on kickoff. You got to be on punt block, holding somebody up for Craig. And you're an athlete. You got to learn to play all positions. You got to block. You saw DJ Davis have a tackle as a gunner on punt, and what a big play in the football game. And he's the gunner, and he gets a tackle for 1-yard loss on a punt return. So speed. That's what I like to have out on the field, no matter if you're on kickoff. You've got to have speed, and that creates problems, and Ralph can do a lot of that.
The big field goal you tried in the first quarter, did you want to – I thought you were going to just snap it a little faster than you did. It seemed like you gave them enough time to –
Well, when you shift, you have to give them time to get set. So, so we shifted people. You got to get set for a count, because if you shift in motion too quick, it's penalty. So that's not a trick where you're trying to let them not, that's why we put Hearn in. They knew eventually they were going to know Hearn's in. We're running it. Basically, that's just a pass play for us. But trying to get them out of position as a field goal, that's how we started. So you got to get set for a second, then you bring a guy in motion. So they actually covered it pretty, it was, if we had to do it again, we'd do it. Really 2 D linemen. There was a little bit of push, and Jalen got kind of caught up in the backfield just a tiny bit, and the 2 D linemen are the ones that ran with the tight end coming back behind the line. So they've done a good job, and we knew if we were in that shorter range, 42 yards, 40, really we said, 38 to 42, windy day, we got to fake in, we're going to run it. So sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Do you know what kind of a team you have there, Coach?
Yeah, I think we know. We've got this is a big week for us to see, the mental makeup. We go from, you lose 3 games and your back's against the wall, and I think that our guys show that they play well like that. Like we said as a group, this was a must-win this week. If we're sitting here 0-3 and 2-4, this is a different press conference, a different mentality, a different week. We'd still be going out there playing in the same thing, but what's on the line? And you go on the road and you get beat, and then you come out and you have the approach to get a big win. So now we're going on the road. Can you do it 2 weeks in a row? That's kind of, we got to wait and see on that. Now I've got confidence in this group that they do, And I think through, 6 games, we're still learning about our guys some, a lot of young guys that are out there playing. You saw some different things. We've learned as coaches, we can do this well. We're not doing this well, so let's not be stupid and keep doing it. Let's get our guys in the right position. So I think yes and no. We obviously know our guys and what they can do, but this is a big test for us going on the road after a big win. Can we keep the momentum going? Can we come out and play well with high expectations on the road in the Missouri Valley against a team at homecoming? We'll see if we've got the mental makeup to do that.
Watching Indiana State, is it fair to say that Sparks is kind of like a pocket passer and Harker is a guy that'll run it, dual threat type of guy?
Yeah, and we've played Harker, and he's a gamer. He's fun to watch on film. Sometimes he just makes things happen. The other one, 16, likes to sit in the pocket. He's got a strong arm and throw it. They do a good job. They've got their scheme and they stick to it. But Harker came here and beat us last year on homecoming, and made some plays to do that and hurt us in some spots. So whoever they play, we'll be ready for, and they've played both of them the last couple of weeks, so we got to be ready for both.
Is there a specific focus in practice this week?
No, our plan doesn't really change. The message to them is always the same. They know the keys to victory. And our 6 keys to victory, really, I think is the first time since I've been a head coach we swept all 6. And usually in that, when you get 5 turnovers and don't turn it over, I think if you would look at all the stats and the history of football, it's probably a pretty lopsided victory. If we would turn it over 5 times and not create any turnovers, we usually lose the football game. So I think they understand that. Explosive plays, we beat them in the explosive plays. We beat them in starting field position. Net punt, again, was big for us. So besides Sam's. But they just, it's the same thing, just fundamentals and going back, and we'll still do the same tackling circuit and turnover circuit and same routine things that we got to continue to get better at.
Their tight end, McClendon's pretty good. Do they use him as a wide receiver a lot?
Yeah, they move. They both. You'll see them have 3 tight ends and look like they're in 10 personnel. You'll see them. That's what they like to do, is create some. And so as a defensive coordinator, sometimes you make your calls based off what personnel they're in, and then you get them in a formation that's usually in a lighter formation set, like no tight ends, 4 wide receivers, but there's 3 tight ends in there. Calls can get messed up, so we got to do a good job, and our guys are in there figuring all that stuff out now. So they create some problems with what they do.
What have they done well when they've played competitive? I mean, their schedule's been brutal. They've been in some close games, like you mentioned, but it's like watching 2 different teams when you watch them, kind of who they're playing.
Yeah, they're aggressive on defense, and they're gonna they played well in all the games. Even the first quarter at South Dakota, they go down and they take a drive down and kick a field goal. They're up 3-0, and then South Dakota scores, and they go right back down and get in the red zone, have to kick another field goal but make it, and 7-6, after the first 3 drives. And so they move the football, and they I'm telling you, they're a good football team, and that's the focus that we have. They scored, it was a shootout against Liberty when Liberty just beat Baylor, and so it's we lost our first 5 games in the conference last year. Felt like we had a good team, and then we beat 2 ranked teams at the end of the season. So they're good football teams in this. They've played the top 2 teams in our league, North Dakota State and South Dakota, and so this is a tough league, I'm telling you. And so we won't even pay attention to what their record is or what it is. I mean, we're a 5-3-3 team, 1-2 in the league. So we'll dive into this thing just as hard as we ever have, any team, and be prepared. And so they do a lot of good things on both sides of the football.
I know coaches don't like to look further than the week they're on right now, but how important is it to build momentum this week for next week with the right now top 5 team?
I don't think any different. You know, like you said, looking ahead, some of our guys, we have no idea. You know, just next week, this game doesn't mean as much if you're 3-4 as if you're 4-3. So this game matters, and that's our complete focus. You know, that's the truth. You have to, you keep winning, and the games get bigger, and they mean something more because you're winning, not because of who you're playing. So that's our focus, and that's why I said, Indiana State is a really, really good football team that we've got to prepare for and play well to win.
You've used the three-man rush, kind of Cody is kind of a fourth rusher sometimes. You've got Caesar on the field a little bit more. It looks like you used it more in passing downs. Do you want to use that more than you have right now?
Yeah, that's the same thing as week to week. What's their scheme? What's their plan on third down? What do we feel like we can take advantage of? And then getting them in predictable down and distances. When you're in third and medium, when and where you're at on the field, if you're past midfield and it's 3rd and 5, maybe 4 down territory, you're probably not going to put dime out there because they could hurt you with the run. Now you got them in 3rd and 10, and they're backed up, and it's probably a passing down. Then you get dime, you get some different people, and you can rush a linebacker. So yeah, we've got to continue to mix up, get our best. Same thing as on defense, get your best people out there. No matter if they're a safety, linebacker, those guys make plays. And James Caesar, we keep talking about him. I keep talking about him not as a backup, but as a starter. He took 21 reps on special teams. He was close to that on defense, pass breakup, making tackles on special teams. He's a starting football player for us. We got to keep getting him on the field in different ways.
What do you think about Jake Farble this week? Has he started running?
Yep, started running. Ran last night with the team, and looked pretty good. So today's their day off, which would be good for him because he probably pushed it as hard as he could or has yet last night. Day off today, treatment, and then it will be in a limited fashion, but we'll practice tomorrow. So we'll kind of see, be smart with him, but see what his role can be. But I would say he's probable for Saturday.
How's Carter done in your opinion?
He's done a good job. He really has gotten better each week, and that's what you're never going to really take that next step of the player until you get thrown out there and have to do it and have to make adjustments and the game speed and that feeling of being nervous, and he's done a good job. He really has. He's different than Jake, as far as but does a really good job blocking. Is a physical presence and has done a good job. Hasn't been out of place. Hasn't. We're in and out of a lot of different personnels, and he's right there, and he's learning fast, and he's just going to keep getting better. This is probably the best thing that's ever happened for him as far as a player, just as he got thrown in and got more reps, and that'll just help us out with depth going forward.
Anything else? Coach, do you reach for your collarbone when you hear about the Green Bay quarterback busting his?
Yeah. No, I don't know. That's why I don't play anymore. I always feel good. I felt fine Sunday after the game. That's what, when you get into coaching, you don't have to worry about your collarbone as much. But yeah, I feel bad for Aaron. I'm a Packers fan, so different team without Aaron Rodgers out there, I'm telling you. So that was a pretty, last week we even watched it. Had Sam even watch the post-game interview just about that 2-minute drive against the Cowboys is pretty, that's high-level quarterback play. And when you listen to him talk, a lot of quarterbacks don't get up there and specifically talk about the plays they're running and why he went where, but we got a chance to watch his interview after the game. That's good quarterback